Hi, this is Michelle. Thank you for tuning into my channel, Paper Stamp Ink, and today I want to show you a great patriotic card that I made using the Dandelion Wishes stamp set. Now, what are you going to do when you want to make a card with fireworks but you don't have fireworks? Reimagine a stamp set you already have. Look in your stash, see what you have that you might be able to think of in a different way, look at it in a different way, and come up with a unique idea. So this was done using block stamping, and I used blueberry bushel and real red were my colors that I thought just spoke patriotic colors, 4th of July colors. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's grab our paper, stamps, and ink, and we'll get going. So for this card, we're going to use a piece of Whisper White Thick for the card base. That is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. Another panel that we're going to use for our stamping. Now this is larger than what we need. This is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but we're going to trim that down after we do our stamping. I found that a little bit easier. And then my background layering papers. Now I like to use my paper to the maximum if I can, so I've taken and already die cut out the Celebrate dies that we're going to use from my background paper. Once we layer these up, you're never going to be able to see that. So we have a piece of real red in 4 by 5 1/4 and a piece of blueberry bushel at 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then, as I mentioned, for our stamps and dies, we're going to use Dandelion Wishes, and I'm using this stamp and the stamp from the set. And then the Celebrate die comes from our Celebrate You Thinlits. It comes with Celebrate You and Amazing for the die cuts, and it's very versatile stamp set, or a die cut set. I think you'll get a lot out of that if you use it, or if you decide to purchase that. If you like what you see on my channel, I sure would appreciate it if you would subscribe down below and give me a thumbs up. If you like to reimagine stamps into something else, leave me a comment. Tell me what you've done, where you've taken a stamp set and turned it into a unique idea. So we are going to do block stamping, and I'm using real red ink and blueberry bushel ink, and we're just going to tap, 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 ink this block up. This is like one of my favorite things to do. I am slightly obsessed with this. I'm going to take this off camera and spritz it so we don't get it all over our work surface. And I'm just taking a spray bottle, a spritzer, and I'm putting it about 6 inches away, giving it a real good spritz so you can see that starting to kind of run. I'm going to flip it over and go ahead and stamp that down right there. Now as you watch, you're going to see that solid turn into kind of a mottled look as the ink goes into the paper, and you're ready to go ahead and pull that up. Give it a quick wipe, even though you're not going to really have any ink hardly at all, or it might not be any on there, just a tad bit, but we're going to go ahead and clean it off so it's ready for our blueberry bushel. And again, spritz that, flip it over. I'm going to line this up. It doesn't have to be exactly precise. If you go over a little bit, that's okay. If you have a little space, like I did on this one, I think that still turned out looking just great. So we're going to let that soak in, pick that up, and there we have our panel ready to go. Now I'm going to save us a little time because this needs to dry before we start stamping on it. I'm going to set that one aside and bring in one that I have prepared ahead of time. You could use a heat gun to dry that, or you could just let it sit overnight, but you do want that nice and dry before you start to stamp on it. I'm going to take our embossing buddy. Anytime we're embossing, we want to use an embossing buddy so we don't get little bits of embossing powder in places that we don't want it. Now I'm using Versamark. If you haven't done any wet embossing, it's a really fun technique and very simple. You're going to need a Versamark stamp pad, ink pad, sorry, and it's got just a really sticky, thick ink. Let's find a place to put that. I'm going to set that right down there. Give it a nice little push. And that stickiness of that ink is going to allow the embossing powder to stick to your paper. I like to put my embossing powder in separate jars that are a little bit larger. Just gives me a bigger target to shoot for when I'm putting all that excess powder back in. So another great idea, if you're not doing that already, is to utilize a coffee filter and keep a brush on hand. So for some reason I got some there that in a spots that I didn't want it, and so I'm just going to use that brush to flick those pieces off for me. Now I did do 2 steps in the embossing because I didn't want to get these, when I was trying to emboss the little bits and pieces up here, I didn't want to risk messing up my embossing here. We are going to put a lid on that embossing powder so that it doesn't go flying everywhere. Yes, that is the voice of experience. So bear with me while we go ahead and heat set this. Now if you watch, you don't want to hold your heat gun too close, but if you keep an eye on that, you're going to see that embossing powder is going to start to melt and change color. And once it gets that glossy finish on it, that's when you know that your embossing powder is set and ready to go. If you try to rush this stage and go too fast, you're going to end up having bits and pieces that aren't set and they're going to smear. All right. So while that's cooling off so we can apply the next layer, let's go ahead and work on our background. I'm going to stick down my real red layer, and I like to use the Tombow Mono Multi Glue, and you don't need a lot of this, just a very little bit. I'm going to get just a tad up in that corner there. Here that down. Have a nice little border. There we go. And then we're going to put our blueberry bushel on. Hope you guys have some fun plans for the 4th of July. This year's kind of weird, falling right in the middle of the week. So I know some people are taking off before or after. Some people are just getting the one day off for the 4th. But whatever you're doing, whether you're camping, working on projects, I sure do hope that you enjoy your 4th of July. And I'd like to thank all of those people that are in the military or military families that make us have the freedom that we do to celebrate and to live our lives in a country that we have freedom to do the things that we want to. So just appreciate their sacrifice. Let's go ahead and bring in our other stamp. Now I only wanted the top part of this, so I went ahead and put some tape just to help me know where I was going to want to emboss. And I'm just going to put, whoops, got a little crazy there. I'm just going to put a few of these scattered around, and I'm going to rotate that stamp set, that stamp, so that they're not all going the same direction. So you can maybe have one more there, and I think I'll put one over here. All right, let's get out that embossing powder and do one more shot of the embossing. There we go. Stick with me while we dry this one off. I'm going to set the embossing powder way over to the side there that's still in that coffee filter, so I don't have to worry about that. And as we heat set this, I'm just going to share it. You might have noticed on my card that I had used some little flecks on there. I used a gel pen. Now, while you could leave it just like this, you didn't even have to add those extra pieces that I did. You could have just stuck with the same sets. When I think of fireworks, I think of lots and lots of little pieces coming out, lots of glitter and pizzazz. And so we're going to use a gel pen in a moment to add some of those pieces on. We have our Celebrate pieces that were cut out, and I'm going to offset those slightly just to get a two-tone look so we can bring in both our blueberry bushel and our real red colors into this card. And we just need a little bit of this glue and a little heavy on that E there. Just going to dot it on and offset that slightly. It's easiest to put the middle piece on and then just start manipulating those letters on either side. You do have a little bit of time with the wet glue to shift those around. Another advantage of that. Okay, so I think this is cooled off and dried off, so I just went in and I added some little trailers, some dots. Again, you can do whatever you would like to do, as much or as little as you'd like to do with this card. We can come down here. I think I'm just going to put some little extra dots around there. If you had a stamp set that would do all those for you, that'd be even easier. I hadn't thought about it until now, but you could maybe just flick some embossing ink or leave some of those little pieces instead of brushing them off that went here, and that would be actually just fine on a card like this where you have all those little sparkles in the night sky when you do your fireworks. So now we have our panel ready to go, and I'm just going to give that a trim down. It doesn't have to be exact measurements here. All I want to do is leave a little bit of a white edge around this card base, so maybe a little bit less than that. And you can make that again as thick or as thin as you would like to do. And we are almost done with this. It's a fairly quick card, but maybe a little bit longer than some of my others that I've done. I do like to tend towards very simple cards that are quick and easy to make. But sometimes it's nice to spend a little bit of extra time doing some of those things like the embossing and the layering the die cuts. I think I might have given the table a little wobble there with my camera. Settle that down here. And then you can either adhere this straight on, or you can use your dimensionals to put them on. Let's give this a little bit. Sometimes your paper, from being wet and heated, you might get a little bit of warping, so just go ahead and give it some extra glue in there and set it down. There we go. I think for the sake of time, I'm just going to lay this one flat. But for the dimension on the other one, I did use the dimensional strips, which are a lot easier to get in these small spaces. Again, you could take this and go straight across, or angle it like I did on the first card. You know what, let's go ahead and go straight across on this one. A little bit different look. And adhere that down. There we go. And then we'll add some sequins, because everything's better with sequins and glitter, right? Of course, it's a lot easier if you don't have glue on your hands already. You know, I don't think it's card making if you don't get a little bit of glitter or a little bit of glue or a little bit of ink somewhere on your hands. There we go. There we have our Dandelion Wishes Celebrate card. I hope that inspired you to look at your stamps in a different way. And if you are interested in any of the Stampin' Up! Products that I've shown today, I sure would appreciate earning your business. You can go to my page at paperstampinc.stampinup.net and shop there. Also, if you like what you see, I sure would appreciate you subscribing. Tap that little bell down below, and you'll get notifications whenever I post a new video. Thanks again, and have a happy 4th. Goodbye.